Good evening and thanks for joining this session about the Green Spaces Fund. My name is Tom Davis. I work for Greater Manchester Combined Authority in the environment team. We have been starting to hold these webinars this week to mark the start of applications for the second round of the Green Spaces Fund. So it's great to have you with us, and hopefully we'll take you through a few pointers on potential applications that you might be considering putting in. As a starting point, just a few housekeeping bits and pieces. We're probably looking at about 15 to 25 minutes presentation, and then there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end of the session. So if you can please pop yourself on mute until then, and post any questions that you have in the chat function that everyone's introducing themselves on. We are also going to be recording this session just so that we can send it out to you afterwards, so you can rewatch it if you miss anything, and so that people who couldn't attend can watch. But we won't be recording the question and answer session. We'll cut off the recording for that, so just so you can ask anything at all and not worry about being recorded on it. So without further ado, I'll get cracking because there's plenty to cover. So what we'll cover today is first off, I'll offer a bit of background into the Green Spaces Fund, where it came from, the background to it. Then I'll hand over to our brilliant team of Green Spaces Fund advisors, some of which are on the call tonight, who will take you through all the key things you need to know in the run-up to applying. So the timeline, what we're looking to see projects deliver, the application form, and so on, as well as giving more detail on the excellent support that they can offer you from you having your initial idea to actually submitting an application. And then there'll be time at the end for questions, as I say. So first off, a bit of an introduction to the fund, why we launched it, and what we want to achieve with it. It's probably best to start with a couple of key documents that have launched over the last few years that help lead us to this point. So in March of this year, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, launched a new Greater Manchester strategy, which sets out our high-level vision for the city region. And at the heart of that is the idea of creating a greener, fairer Greater Manchester. And having greener and fairer so prominent is actually absolutely crucial for us, really. And it cuts to the heart of what we're trying to do and achieve with the Green Spaces Fund and other initiatives in the environment area. 3 years ago now, we also published a 5-year plan for the environment in Greater Manchester. So that sets out how we want to improve the environment for everyone in the city region, and it includes protecting and enhancing our green spaces and how we're going to tackle our climate and biodiversity emergencies that we have in Greater Manchester. So in short, the environment and particularly green spaces are front and centre of what we're trying to achieve, putting green spaces and their benefits at the heart of everything that we're doing, and that's what those two key publications set out. They were also echoed in the Mayor's manifesto from the last election. So he built on the ethos of those two key points. His manifesto contained the commitment to improve our green spaces and open them up to more people. And he went on to commit to creating the Green Spaces Fund that would give grants to communities to improve accessible local green spaces, parks, other spaces, or create new ones where they're needed the most. So increasing the amount and quality of green space that's accessible to people and doing good for the natural environment at the same time. Importantly, that's all with a particular focus on the areas where they're needed by the residents of Greater Manchester. It's about increasing access for everyone across the city region, so to ensure that everyone has access to good green space. So that's really where the guiding principles as we developed the fund came from. And you'll see that running through the application guidance, the application form, everything that we ask of you in applying all sort of routes back to that. Since the fund was launched earlier in the year, so we ran a first round between June and August, and that round received over 70 applications, resulted in 21 schemes receiving funding right across the city region, and that was to a total sum of about £400,000. We've now launched round 2, runs until January 23, late January 23. So there's plenty of funding left, and it's the perfect time to work with our advisors. They can give you advice on sort of what went well in round 1 and things to to think about as you apply. So it's a really good time to be thinking about your application. Finally, from me, this slide just sets out how we took the vision from the mayor, those key strategic documents, and translated them into the aims of the fund. So this is really at the core of what we want to see projects from the Green Spaces Fund deliver. So the first aim is to benefit communities in the greatest need of quality green space. So we're weighting the criteria really towards targeting communities where at the moment there's a lack of access to quality green space, or where improving existing green space will have the most benefit. And that's closely tied to the desire to benefit communities experiencing inequalities. So it's really about targeting this funding where it's going to have the most impact and benefit for residents. Secondly, the fund aims to help tackle our climate and biodiversity emergencies I mentioned before. So that's about creating new and improved spaces that will have a benefit for nature. So we're talking about physical improvements to green spaces for the most part. And we also know how green spaces can help the city region adapt to the impacts of climate change, like helping reduce flooding or the risk of heat waves. So we want to see projects that consider that as well. Finally, the third aim of the fund is to encourage and empower. I'm just getting a bit. 1 second, sorry, just getting a bit of feedback. Thirdly, we want to encourage and empower communities to get involved in nature. So it's all about these projects being community driven and bringing the community together around their green spaces. So they're the aims of the fund and the background to what has driven the fund so far. I hope that's helpful context for you as you consider your own applications. I'll now hand over to Lydia, I think, who's going to take us through the timings and eligibility criteria for the fund.
Tom. So I'm Lydia, I'm one of the advisors, and the area that I work in is Rochdale. So if anyone on the call is from Rochdale and has any groups or ideas up there, it's me you'll get in contact with and speak to. So this is the timeline of the fund, and like Tom mentioned, we're kind of 10 days into the second round, with it being open on 31st of October, and then submission deadline is noon on the 27th of January. So you've got a little bit of time, but obviously within that we've got the Christmas break and people tend to kind of wind down, don't they, before Christmas. So as much as it feels like a long time, it would be good to get, you know, the conversations, the balls rolling now, and try and get those in as early as possible, so we don't end up with any kind of last minute kind of panic submissions. We want to make sure that you all feel like super confident submitting your applications, and then hopefully turnaround time in terms of successful projects being announced would be March, and then we'll roll on to round three after that. So you have 12 months to complete your project from when you are awarded the funding, and we as advisors can kind of help you there as you go into that project delivery stage. So we are your like critical friend from beginning to end. And obviously there'll be further details about the third round as we get closer to that. So then this is just, I guess, the eligibility of who can apply. So it's kind of your regular community fund groups, so your community groups, your associated groups, your CIOs, CICs, social enterprises, residents groups, schools, trusts. If you don't have kind of the policies and stuff in place, you can use an accountable body. So like it says, like registered housing providers or local authorities or councils, so they can kind of help you with the fund, with the legal aspect of the fund. So that's something to take into consideration, kind of help boost your application in that respect. So the eligibility, and it's all quite clear, and there's a little bit more in the guidance, but kind of your regular. So Katie, I think, is going to run through the application form and show you kind of how to apply and what it looks like. So I'll pass over to her.
Thanks, Lydia. Yeah, so the application process to apply for it is an application form on the website, and there's a series of questions which I'll go through. But the website is on the slide here. It's the gmnfund.org/greenspacesfund. And because it's sort of a website based form, there is a template of the form as well on that website, and we do recommend you kind of like doing your application on that template and then having to kind of copy and paste it into the website form, because there's no way that you can save it or anything like that. So we do advise you to do it on the template. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Can everyone see that? Yeah, fab. So this is the Green Spaces Fund website. So this will be the first thing that you see when you click onto it. Obviously, as Lydia said, applications are open now and they're running until the 25th of January. So I'll just skim past this quickly. Again, there's the proposed timings that Lydia's mentioned as well. So all of that is on there if you do need to refresh yourself on that. So I said application guidance, all the templates and everything are on the website here. So you've got your guidance for applicants, you've got your FAQs and your terms and conditions. And here there are the template for the application. So you'd click on that, you'd get a downloaded form, and that's what I said, that it's best to do your application on that bit, and then you can copy and paste it into the actual website form, which is just a little bit further down. There you go. So this is the beginning of your application form. Again, it just reiterates when the deadline is for this round 2. So the first thing that you're going to be asked for is the essential criteria, and if your piece of land that you're thinking of for your project is on council land or anything like that, you will need to have sort of landowner permission, and you'll need to know who that land owner of the land is as well. So you can just fling through that, no problems, with your landowner site. Or if you are the landowner as well, there is an option to click on that. But we will need to have proof of that permission before any funding is actually given. The next bit is your public access. So accessibility for any project is one of the key things for this fund, and it must be publicly accessible for all members, not just sort of your group or your organisation's members. So it needs to be kind of accessible for everyone. And there is more information on that kind of criteria in the guidance documents as well. So there's just a quick yes and no, and we also have sort of what days and hours are your projects open to the public. And then again, planning permission, you've got to have it in writing before you apply. And if you've had it straight away, then that's fine. Or maybe if planning permission isn't needed for any sort of projects that you've got going on. So we're moving on to section 1. So that's all about your organisation or your group. So you've got your group name. We need a lead contact for us to get contact you at any point, along with contact details like email addresses, telephone, mobile number. And we do ask as well for a secondary contact as well, just in case we can't get hold of the lead contact. Again, it's like addresses, postcodes, anything like that for us to get in touch with you for any reason. Accountable body as well. So if you're working with or you're being supported by anyone else, like your local authority or local parish council, and they will be sort of in charge of, like, accountable for you as a group, then we need those details down on there as well. So again, address, postcode, but that's only if you do need to have an accountable body. Again, this is more about who you are as an organisation, for us to get a bit of a feel of what you are as a group and things like that. So again, tick the one option that is relevant to you. So whether you're a registered charity or whether you're a CIC or anything like that. Again, this is all just information about what your organisation does. If you're a charity, you might have a charity number. If you've got any sort of social media, website or anything like that, when your organisation was set up. So just general information about yourself as a group. Then we've got any sort of policies and procedures that you may have. So there's a few options there. So you need to have some sort of policies and procedures. So your safeguarding, volunteering, public liability and health and safety. And tick one of those options which are relevant, and you can develop these before the project starts, or you may be going through your accountable body for that as well. So in section 2 is all about your project. So the first question is whether you want to apply for the small grant or the large grant. So the smaller grant is up to £15,000, and then the large one is between 15 and 40. This question is whether you've been supported by a Green Spaces Fund advisor. So as I said, there's some of us on the call today. So I am the advisor for Stockport and Tameside. So if there are any of you that are on the call today, then I'll be the person that you'll be getting in touch with if you need any sort of advice and guidance on the application. So then again, this is all about your project. So you need to get a project title, usually kind of what you, and the project summary as well. Think of a fairly good project title to begin with, because that's the title that we'll roll with throughout your whole project in the delivery as well. So you can see on these boxes as well, there's a word limit. So your project summary is in 100 words or less. So that's just kind of a really sort of quick, brief show of what your project's really about. There's further down the application form, there's more to elaborate there. Obviously, we need to know where your location is. We've got a postcode option and an optional what 3 words to put onto your project site. And again, we need to know where exactly it is, what region it is as well. So this one is your project activities. So you describe your project activities, sort of what you're thinking of doing, any sort of activities wise like that, and include timings into that as well. You've got 500 words, sorry, to do that. And then again, it's what are you going to do and when. So it's just more in depth. So there's a template on the website that will an Excel spreadsheet that is your activity spreadsheet, and you can upload that onto this website. You just click choose file and then get your spreadsheet on there. So that puts up more information on any sort of physical changes and activities that will take place during your project, and when you're actually planning for each of these to take place within your project. So if you've got a certain activity that might happen in June, then you put that down, or if you've got something else happening in July, etc. So then we want to know who will be involved with your project. So that's any sort of volunteers that you may be working with, any sort of outside agencies, or people who may need to do a bit more sort of physical work or contractor work, anything like that. So we just need to know who will be involved. And then we have 300 words here on how you will maintain your project after the Green Spaces Fund money has been spent. So we want to know about the sustainability of your project and what kind of legacy that the project will have after the funding is finished. So section 3 covers all about the aims of the Green Spaces Fund. So at the beginning, when Tom was mentioning about the 3 main aims, there's also a reminder here to show you what the aims are. So aim 1, benefit communities in greatest need of quality green space. And in the this is obviously to tackle those inequalities by targeting green improvements for the communities that need it the most. And there's a few different things that you can do here to help you in terms of statistic wise, and a lot of that is in the guidance to look at sort of the IMD, which is the index of multiple deprivation, and those are the areas that are obviously in need of tackling those inequalities basically. So if you've got if you if your project is within one of those areas, then please do put that down on your application form. Then what are the key changes facing your community? Just gives us a little bit more information about the community itself, just given a broad sort of description of the challenges that are faced. It could be sort of unemployment or access to healthcare or anything like that. Again, how has your project been driven by the community? So we want to know, we want to have projects from grassroots community groups, and we want to know how the community is actually driven, that there's a need for this project really. So then your aim 2 is tackling the biodiversity emergency. So we want to know about any projects that will plant some trees or get some flowers in and just get that a good amount of quality green space to benefit people, but also benefit that nature as well to tackle that biodiversity emergency. So again, you can see that there's 400 words, and the more you type in there, this should go down, so you should be able to see how many words you've got. Again, aim 3 then is encouraging and empowering communities to get involved. So again, this is about how you're going to engage with people during your project and doing specific engagement activities, whether that's volunteer opportunities, upskilling people in new tasks, training them, or anything like that. Then we move down to section 4. It's all about evaluation and about the things that you will monitor. So whether that could be a number of volunteers you have during your project, it could be number of trees that are planted, number of sessions that you've run during the time. You can tick all that apply there. So if you're working on numerous ways of monitoring your project, then tick all the ones that you need to. And then it says about monitoring measures, any that's not listed above. Maybe you've got some different ideas how you're going to report on that as well. So section 5, this is all about your project costs. Again, there's an Excel spreadsheet of a template for project costs as well. And this is basically just a list of all the costs that are associated with your project, and then we'll then be able to see how much you want to apply for and things like that. I know that for a lot of community groups, this can be a bit daunting to do. So again, we do have green spaces advisors across the borough to be able to help you with any sort of costs or anything like that you may have. Then section 6 is just your acknowledgement, that you confirm that you understand everything. Section 7 is your data sharing. And then section 8 is just the declaration, just to kind of confirm that all the details that are accurate and correct, and that you're willing to submit this application on behalf of the organisation or the group. And then section 9 is your bank details. So in the guidance, we do need to have a bank details on there. And these must match any bank statements provided, so they should be for the organisation that will receive the grant itself. And again, yeah, so it asks to upload bank statements dated within the last 3 months. So if you haven't got a bank statement right now, it's something that you need to try and get organised as soon as possible. You may, if you haven't got the bank statement, you may not be able to apply for round 2, but then round 3 will be open sort of at the end of maybe March or April, something like that. So that's your application form. You click submit, and then once you submit it, you will get kind of a ping on your screen to say that it's been submitted, and then maybe a week later you'll get a confirmation email. But if you are chatting to a funding advisor, please do let them know that you have submitted an application, and then if you don't receive that email within that week, then let us know and we can chase that up to see if there's anything that's gone wrong on the system or anything like that. So that is it from me. I think I'm handing over to Kieran now.
You are, yeah. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
And good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well. My name's Kieran. I'm the advisor for Manchester and Trafford boroughs. But also, I'm from the City, and our sort of area of expertise, if you like, is community food growing. So if you have an idea in a different borough around community food growing, that kind of thing, then I'll be able to help you as well, hopefully. So just very quickly, I wanted to run through this quite small looking table, certainly on my screen, but don't worry, I'll bring it to life for you. Just about the weighting and how ultimately when we've received your application, how the people with suits in big tall buildings will be marking it. And just so you get an idea of what weighting is going on and where to place a lot of the emphasis. Just before we get into that, one thing I would pick up on both from what Katie and Lydia have said previously is, yeah, there's 27th of January does seem a long way away, but it actually isn't. And what we've certainly found that if you need to get things like permission for your project from a landowner, it can take a bit of time. So please do, move on with that as quick as you can. Seek our support to do that, because it can take a bit of time. And similarly with things like costs, you have your shopping lists of all these great things you want to do, how many trees you want to plant, how many paths you want to build, that sort of thing. But it can take a while to cost them up accurately, and we need to make sure they're accurate so you know how much money you're asking for, and you don't get shortchanged. And ditto things like match funding. The larger your grant gets, there's a requirement to bring more funding to the table from other sources, really, and that's something that, in my experience, can take a bit of time, particularly with Christmas breaks in the way and people disappearing and letters required to confirm that. So, no pressure or anything, but please bear in mind, if you're wanting to get your money by March, April to get on with your project spring next year, really seek our help and push on with it as quickly as possible. So just bringing this table to life then. So Tom and Katie have outlined the key aims of the funds that come direct from the Mayor's office. If you look at the left-hand column there, you can see aim number 1, benefit communities in greatest need of quality green space. And effectively, there's 3 components of that. But if your maths is as good as mine, if not better, you can probably work out that totals that aim a whopping 55% of your score. So the space in the application form to bring that to life is about 1,200 words across 3 questions. But what we want is, we really want a tale about what the green space is like in your community, or what it's not like if it doesn't exist, what the issues are with it, why people struggle to access it, or what is the issue? What is the issue with the actual green infrastructure you're seeking to solve? There is a tool that's shown in the guidance, which is a tool developed by Natural England to actually measure accessible green space. You can put your postcode in and that might inform your answer. But what it doesn't do is tell you about accessible quality green space. So, you and your group really bring to life for us, because bearing in mind the people that are marking this probably won't know your community or your project. So really bring, the issue of green space to life. The second one is about deprivation. So key aim is about communities in greatest need. And that is driven by something called the indices of multiple deprivation, lots of stats and things like that. Again, we can help you with that. There's an online tool, and it basically brings up heat maps about where are the more deprived areas and where aren't. Now, if you're lucky or unlucky enough to fall into some of the more deprived communities, that is great for this fund, and that is a great start of the answer. If you're lower down the league table of deprivation, work needs to be done, and again, to develop that narrative about the needs of your community or the pockets of deprivation we're looking to solve. And the third thing, it's all about being community driven. We've had a number of inquiries from people wanting to do good for their area, but there's only 1 or 2 people perhaps in that group. what we need to feel, and this relates to sustainability and benefit and value for money, is that it's really coming from the community. There's a real demand for this project. So basic message, aim 1, 55%. That is over half of your score from answering that one question. The second one, I think there might be something missing from this table, but as I understand it, it's very much about climate and biodiversity emergency. So, you know, it's COP27 this week. There's a picture of a rapidly disappearing iceberg on the wall behind me. So very much make your projects about both climate and biodiversity emergency, and all the things that Tom outlined before, be it, you know, helping pollinators, tree planting, green roofs, urban cooling, workshops about climate change. This now carries 15%. So, you know, it's an important nugget, not as big as aim 1, but it's certainly, you know, a key scoring area there. So make sure that sort of permeates your application. And the third one is about encourage and empower communities to get involved with nature. So the people that wouldn't normally have dirt under the fingernails, we want to be hearing from your application how you're going to be involving them, planting trees, making bug hotels, helping maybe manage the space going forward into the future as part of your maintenance plan. So, you know, that links to all this, like, communities really getting involved in nature. And just on that, I'm certainly not suggesting all of you do it. I think it'd be great if you did all do it. But this, one of the successful applications from round 1 under this area, had something called Rave the Planet, which was all about playing music when they did their activities. The purpose being that it started to appeal to different audiences, whether it was reggae music playing, dance music playing, or classical music, to bring different communities to get involved in, you know, sometimes people have perceptions about gardening and not wanting to get involved, but that was a really interesting model we found, and really looking forward to capturing that. So if you're following me, 55% aim 1, 15% aim 2, 15% aim 3 does not add up to 100. So where is the mystery remaining 15%? Well, that's in the fourth sort of box. That isn't an aim, but it's just a sort of scoring check that permeates your form or your application. And it's about sustainable, deliverable and realistic projects. So is it going to last? Is this going to create a legacy for your community? Is it deliverable, or is there some sort of like awkward barrier there that might jeopardize it happening? And is it realistic? You know, is it, you know, we want this to be, this is quick win stuff here. We want it to be starting as soon as possible after you get your grant money. But is that possible and realistic? So this is all summarised on page 16 of the guidance that can be downloaded from the website. I hope that overview was helpful, just about, you know, ultimately what the Dragon's Den panel will be scoring your application on. Could we have the next slide, please, Tom? This slide, what I would say is reach out to us as advisors. We will help you with this to get going, because there's certain websites to get your head around and stuff. But these are tools, if you have a bit of time and want to start playing around with, these are tools that can really help inform that aim 1, which is the 55%er, communities in greatest need of quality green space. So it's all about illustrating the deprivation issues and illustrating the access to green space issues, but a couple of tools there. But we just wanted to really emphasize, you know, as the driver of the fund, that's what this is all about. So next slide, please. I think this is where maybe Amy is going to provide an overview of the wider partnership and the skills in the team.
Thanks, Kieran, and hello everyone. I'm Amy. I work for Groundwork Greater Manchester, and I project manage our wonderful team of advisors, and you've met some of them already. So we've got Lydia from Groundwork Greater Manchester as well, who's already introduced herself and covering Rochdale, Katie from City of Trees, who you've met, and Kieran from Sale the City, and actually we'll introduce the others in a minute on the next slide. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but yeah, who are the advisors and what we're here to do? We've heard a bit about that already today, but essentially here to support you with your application from beginning to end. So the real joy about the group and the team is the geographical spread that they cover, but also the different environmental knowledge, expertise and wealth of skills that they bring to the partnership as well, which is quite unique for this fund. So as Kieran was mentioning, for example, if someone's interested in food growing, we can point you towards Kieran and Sell the City. But if someone's interested in tree planting, we can point you towards City of Trees, and so on. We all work together as a team and share a sort of case management workload. So we can point you in the right direction to the advisor that can help you if you've got a project that taps into one of our particular specialisms, or just need advice on a certain area that one of our advisors work in or have experience in. So as has been mentioned, they can help you with any questions you've got about the application form, any questions about the guidance. They can steer you in the right direction to make sure that your application is as strong and as likely to be as successful as possible. They will also run sort of meet the funder events out and about in the community, so you can go there and ask them questions, and they will do targeted engagement outreach work in the areas that need the support the most, and for the communities that might benefit the most from this fund in the most deprived areas, working with our partners across Greater Manchester and local authority contacts that we have as well. And yeah, we work closely with local authorities, can support with things like permissions and any other questions that you might have. So we really do strongly suggest you getting in touch with us. There is our general email address there at the bottom, gsfadvisors@groundwork.org.uk, and if you come through to there, we'll point you in the right direction or give you some advice. But you can also get in touch directly with the advisors in your area as well. So on this slide, we've got the names again, the email addresses and the specialisms, the areas covered. So yeah, we've met a few of them already. But Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, good evening everyone. My name's Stephen Hodges. I work for another groundwork trust. I work for the Groundwork Trust in Lancashire and Cheshire. And the area I'm covering as an advisor is the Wigan Borough. I'm a specialist in grant funding for groundwork. I've worked for groundwork for about 17 years now, filling in applications of this kind, and I manage a team of countryside rangers and project officers that work with volunteers to undertake a lot of conservation programmes, whether that's ponds up in Blackpool or heritage projects around Rivington Terrace Gardens. Yeah, I've got a wealth of experience I can hopefully help you all with.
Thanks, Stephen. And also, not on the call tonight, but as part of our advisor team, we've got Nina. And Nina is covering the Oldham and Salford areas. She works for the RHS. And if there are any sort of horticulture, gardening type projects and applications that come through, Nina is your person for that. And we have Emma, who is the advisor for Bolton and Bury. And Emma works for Lancs Wildlife Trust. And she can help with anything to do with wildlife, nature recovery and well-being as well, so they can support you on that. So we can put the general email address into the chat. We'll put the individual email addresses in there as well, and these slides will be shared with everyone afterwards. And there is a page on our Green Space Fund website that has all of these details and a bit of a get to know you profile of all our advisors with pictures, so you don't forget what they look like. And I'll pop that in the chat as well. But yeah, please do get in touch with us. We're here to help you. Some groups might not need as much help as others, but we're here to support whatever the level of advice and support you need. So please do get in touch.